Good morning on this Sunday, April 11th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. We take a deep dive into the fallout and controversy surrounding Georgia's new election law and the impact across the state from Truist Park to the Augusta National. Have you noticed any changes since Governor Kemp lifted coronavirus restrictions this week? Also, Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan will reportedly not run again. Phil and Janelle are here. Bobby Capel is back as Theron and Kathy take the week off. I told Phil and Janelle to go easy on them. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Another week of digesting Georgia's new voting law. Depending on which side of the debate you're on, the MLB either caved to cancel culture or stood up to voting rights when it pulled the All-Star game out of Georgia.
I will not be backing down from this fight.
Governor Kemp was stern in his convictions about Georgia's new voting law after some called for boycotts and Major League Baseball pulled the All-Star game from Truist Park in Cobb County. Many nearby business owners say they're going to feel the financial loss.
We're trying to build back from a pandemic that happened last year, and something like this is not good for business. Rodneys will suffer.
One of the controversial parts of the law makes it a misdemeanor for third parties to hand out water or food to people in line to vote within 150 feet of a precinct or 25 feet of any voter at a polling place. Gwinnett's solicitor called the law unethical and said he would not prosecute violators.
To transport a person usually takes about an hour. We don't have time to have useless crimes stop the justice system.
It's a controversy the chairman of the Augusta National couldn't ignore.
We realize that views and opinions on this law differ, and there have been calls for boycotts and other punitive measures. Unfortunately, those actions often impose the greatest burdens on the most vulnerable in our society. And in this case, that includes our friends and neighbors here in Augusta, who are the very focus of the positive difference we are trying to make.
So much to digest this week over the voting law. And Phil, I want to start with you. I think what's fascinating to me is that obviously Republicans saw no reason for the MLB to pull out the All-Star game out of Georgia, but prominent Georgia Democrats, including Stacey Abrams, reportedly urged the MLB not to make the move. So what happened?
That's right. In fact, I think Stacey Abrams owes the state of Georgia an apology, a state she claims to love, and she ran for governor a few years ago. Here you go. She's calling and harassing Rob, the commissioner of the MLB, and then she's turning around and saying, well, wait a minute, now I guess I'm not for a boycott now. If she means it, she ought to be going to Denver and she ought to be holding news conferences and saying, return the All-Star game back to Atlanta. I think this is very dishonest, and that was a very good package that you had to start the show, showing the diverse views. But I think the Democrats have made a huge mistake. Not all Democrats. I mentioned Lisa Cupid last week, the chairwoman of the Cobb County Commission, Bernice King, and other Democrats saying, wait a minute, we don't like the election reform law, but this is not the way to go. And I have to praise Fred Ridley, the chairman of the Augusta National Golf Club that hosts the Masters tournament that's going on. I think he had it right. That's the way a CEO should be acting. We don't want to get into politics. We don't want to hurt people. And boycotts hurt people. And I'm disappointed with the Atlanta Constitution talking about Colorado, where they're going to play the All-Star game. Look at this headline from the other day. MLB picks state known for voting access. That's not true at all. That's fake news. I don't understand why the editors go along with this, especially when they just adopted a new ethics code to be fair. The Colorado law also requires photo IDs when you vote for absentee ballots and in person. We have more early voting days now under this law than Colorado. I could go on and on. There's not enough time, but it's terrible to have these myths and lies and disinformation spread by Abrams and all too many people on the left.
So yeah, Bobby, let's get your take on all of this. Was the move by Major League Baseball justified? And I guess my question too is what are the future ramifications here? We know Atlanta is going, to try to be a host of the World Cup, of some of the games. Will this have a major impact looking ahead?
Well, look, I'm personally bummed that we don't have the All-Star game here in Atlanta. I wanted to go take my 2 5-year-olds to the game and get a hot dog and a beer and watch some of the best players in the world. And I think Stacey Abrams agrees with me. No one here in Georgia was wanting this game to be moved outside of Georgia. There were forces at work outside of the state, but the real force at work that caused this was from within the Capitol building when Brian Kemp and the Republican-led state legislature decided to pass a voter suppression bill in Georgia. We've seen this happen in North Carolina when they passed similar controversial laws that they got the Final Four removed and championship games removed from North Carolina. So there can be no surprise here in Georgia that the party of personal responsibility is taking none of it. The fact is, they wrote the law. It is voter suppression. The problem with this law is not the extending voter hours. I mean, there's a lot of problems with it, but the biggest problem in this law is the fact that the state legislature, currently controlled by Republicans, can take over local election boards, up to 3 of them in different counties across the state. That is just completely unacceptable, and I think that's why you're seeing the backlash nationwide. But personally, like Stacey Abrams, I'm bummed that this thing got moved out of here. It's not right.
And Janelle, Bishop Reginald Jackson said his calls for boycotts of several Georgia companies are on hold, pending a meeting this week with executives. The AJC reports that Bishop Jackson, that he met with Delta and Coca-Cola executives before they came out strongly against the bill, and he plans to deliver similar messages to Aflac, AT&T, Home Depot, Southern Company, UPS. I mean, what do you think we'll see these companies do?
Well, first of all, these companies should have never been involved. And I love how, Bobby keeps saying, I agree with Stacey Abrams. Well, first of all, Stacey Abrams was sending out text messages to people encouraging them to boycott prior to all of this. But I have to come from the business owner angle. I remember when COVID hit. I remember the fear that me and my husband felt as business owners, not knowing what this virus was going to do, what our business was going to look like after the end of all of this. This is the same fear that every small business owner felt, just not knowing what the impact was going to be. So for so many of these small businesses, they saw this all-star week. And let's make sure we be clear about this. It wasn't just one game. It was an entire week that they could actually rebound. And not just rebound financially, but this is rebounding mentally, rebounding emotionally, being able to finally spend time with their family, just be able to be in a position where they are not losing sleep at night and worrying about what's going to happen. But instead, we had Stacey Abrams, Al Sharpton, LeBron James advocating against the needs of the people, but advocating for what they want. By the way, they're all millionaires, so they don't have small businesses they have to worry about. This is the only motivation towards this is political motivation. And if you want to be upset about the law, that's fine. That's why you can file a lawsuit, which Stacey Abrams is so good at doing, filing multiple lawsuits. That's what you can do when you win it in court. You don't punish other people that have nothing to do with this. Because please believe, the decision that was made does not punish Republicans. It punishes the small business owners. It punishes the vendors, the people that was depending on this income. It was stupid. I think it's completely selfish. And I really, really hope that we learn from this and we learn that we need to keep politics out of keeping the emotions out of politics and just handle things the way they're supposed to be handled.
And Bobby, Janelle, yeah. I completely agree with you that it's the small business owners and the people here of Georgia that are going to be the ones that get hurt by this decision. But I disagree with you on who's the reason for why they're getting this hurt. I think it is 100% lies in the Republican legislature and Brian Kemp, who decided to pass this law. This was a law in search of a problem that did not exist. The only reason it was passed in the first place is because several state legislators and Governor Kemp himself were trying to cover their right flank in a primary to pacify Donald Trump about the big lie that he thinks he still won an election in which he got 5 million less votes here in America, and he lost Georgia, not only in November, but then Trump was on the ballot, make no mistake, in January in those runoffs, and he lost again twice. I think if you're going to talk about boycotts and hurting people in Georgia, you got to also talk about the fact that President Donald Trump said we should be boycotting our beloved Coca-Cola here in Atlanta. Do you know how many people, including my mother-in-law, work for Coca-Cola for years? They make their living through Coca-Cola. And the fact that he is doing that is equally problematic. And then the hypocrisy, as usual with Donald Trump, he's photographed the day he issues the boycott for Coca-Cola with a Diet Coke sitting right there on his desk in a picture. So I'm not surprised.
I'm out of time,
Well,
but I'm out of time. I just want to get to one more quick issue on this. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis says she will not seek to prosecute State Rep Park Cannon after she was arrested for repeatedly knocking on Governor Kemp's door when he was signing the voting bill into law. Phil, I want to get your take on this rather quickly, and then Bobby, real quick, please.
Well, I like Fani Willis, and I'm glad she's the new DA, and she's going after violent crime and gangs and respecting due process for police especially, but I think she made a mistake here. Here, this representative was banging on the door. She was asked by a state trooper, stop it. She wouldn't. I think it's a bad signal to send when you're disobeying a police officer. You do have to respect authority, and then you can fight that. If she felt it was unfair, go ahead and fight it in court.
All right, Bobby, real quick.
Fani made the right decision. Case closed.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Coming up, we're going to move on to another major story in Georgia, the lifting of coronavirus restrictions across the state.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
This week, Governor Kemp lifted many COVID-19 restrictions across Georgia as the number of cases continue to decline and more people get vaccinated. Phil, I'll turn to you first on this one because last week, Kathy was pretty hard on Governor Kemp. And I looked into some of the numbers and the rankings she was talking about. When it comes to the number of people who have died from COVID, Georgia ranks 19th compared to other states in terms of the death rate. Now, when it comes to the vaccination rate, Georgia, according to the numbers, is at the bottom, but we know Governor Kemp has said there is a lag in the data collection.
Well, thank you, Lori. I did want to correct Kathy. I wish she was here today because a couple things. Our numbers, as you point out with deaths, are good. No deaths are good, but we've bent the curve on that. But yes, there are situations with the federal pharmacy program. They go directly into pharmacies in the state, and they're not in the state reporting system. Also, the VA, the Veterans Administration, they're administering vaccinations. This is not being reported by the state. And even last Monday, the AJC, who I often criticize, actually said we're not at the bottom anymore. And so I just wanted to correct that. I'm far more optimistic than Kathy was last week.
All right, Bobby, restaurants and businesses are free to make decisions regarding COVID-19 restrictions. Many are still social distancing and requiring masks.
Yeah, I think this is an opportunity for restaurants to do what they believe is right. And I think that is totally fine at this point in the pandemic. I think we all have our heads wrapped around exactly what this means, what risks we want to take. If you're fully vaccinated, if you're not fully vaccinated, masks, social distancing. It's been baked into the American culture and Georgia culture now. We all know what we're getting into when we enter the public domain, and we can choose to take those risks or not at this point, especially now that people are getting vaccinated. No matter how the state is performing, we are definitely seeing a lot more vaccinations than we saw a few months ago. And so this is an opportunity, I think, for small businesses to, and restaurants specifically, to decide what they want to do. Now, me personally, if I owned a restaurant, I would still have table social distance. In some cases, you might have some of those yurts or pods. As we get into warmer weather, people aren't going to want that so much. People are putting plexiglass in between booths in some of the restaurants we've dined out at. And so I think it's totally appropriate for each business to look in the mirror and decide where they want to land on this. And as we kind of move through the next stage of this.
Yeah, I think that plexiglass is here to stay. And Janelle, I want to move on to this because Governor Kemp weighed in on this idea of a vaccine passport as some businesses and even universities look at the issue of requiring people to have proof they got their shots. And Governor Kemp said a decision to get the vaccine should be left up to the individual. What do you think?
So when I think of vaccine passports, it sounds a little Mark of the Beast-ish, and that's just like for my church friends. But demanding anyone or telling anyone where they can and can't go based on whether they got the vaccine in a country where we are shareholders, because it's our tax dollars that is funding this country, to me is just insane. I am totally against it. The government's job is to provide the vaccine. It's not to force it into people's arms. And that is up to the individual, and their health is up to the individual. So I am totally against this idea. I support the governor on that. And I think that I know the administration said they weren't going to do it, but the idea that the point that we're even talking about it is bizarre to me. So I'm hoping that we can just dead this idea and just continue to move forward and get us back to a place of normalcy.
But Bobby, do you think we'll see some private businesses require the vaccines? I mean, I think about the cruise lines for, just as an example.
Well, hold on a second. I just have to respond to what Janelle just said, which is the only people talking about this vaccine passport fantasy are people on the loony right who have no basis in reality. And so the fact is President Biden, and Democratic governors across the country as well, no one's talking about vaccine passports. What folks might be talking about at some point is that you have to either show a vaccine card or show a negative COVID test to enter or exit certain restaurants or countries or cruise ships, and that's totally appropriate. There are people who run these businesses that get to make those decisions on an individual basis, which the governor himself suggests. So the fact that there is no vaccine passport, it's just saying, hey, if you have gotten a vaccine, you can flash that card. You don't need to go get the negative COVID test before you get on a Norwegian cruise line, for example.
Janelle and then Phil.
Well, I don't know who he's calling loony, but I will say that there are a number of people that's talking about it, so much so that Jen Psaki talked about it. So clearly it's a topic. And then when it comes to, being able to have private businesses and then to disguise it as just showing that you have to flash your card, it's no different. So we may call it something different, but it's the same concept. So I think what people are understanding is that this concept is a concept that we are not for, and we certainly don't want to see it implemented on a federal level. As a private business owner, yeah, you can do whatever you want to do. But on a federal level, this shouldn't be a topic. That's where we're coming from.
Public schools and certain universities already require certain vaccinations for kids when they show up at school. I don't see how this vaccination is any different, frankly.
Well,
to go to school, if it's against your religion, if it's against your faith, you don't have to get vaccinated. So there is a difference. So the point is forcing people to get a vaccine. It's like forcing someone to get the flu vaccine. It's the concept, Bobby. The concept of vaccine passports is forcing people or trying to force people to get vaccinated. If that's not what you believe, then please share with me what would be the purpose of
it's not forcing anybody to get vaccinated. It's just forcing you to produce a negative COVID test before you enter whatever business that personal business owner decides.
Telling someone they can't travel.
Y'all are talking over each other, so
I'm going to travel is ridiculous.
I'm going to stop it right there because y'all are talking over each other, and our viewers don't like that. Phil, I want to ask you, the impact is still being felt on schools. This week, DeKalb County canceled prom for the second year in a row.
Well, that's sad. And the schools, as we all know, have been struggling. Public schools, universities. What happened in DeKalb County, they just didn't have time to adjust for a prom. They weren't prepared. The restrictions that were in place that would have required planning, raising cash for the prom, things like that, it just couldn't happen. I am glad that the DeKalb school system and a lot of school systems now are going into in-person classes. That should have been started way before then. And so that's the good news in DeKalb.
It's good to see. Thanks, everybody. Coming up, the race for lieutenant governor next year may not have an incumbent. We'll discuss straight ahead.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
The AJC is reporting this week Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan will not seek a second term. Janelle, what does this mean for the race? And I guess really for Republicans who may not fully support Donald Trump, are they in trouble in a primary?
I will say that as far as what it means for the race is that it's just going to open the door for new people. When it comes to President Trump, we saw that he has I think it's like an 85% approval rating here amongst Republicans. And so that is huge. So I don't know. I'm not quite sure what Duncan's approach is. I think sometimes that, maybe he feels like going after that 15% of people that are not approving of President Trump will somehow benefit him in a different way. I heard that he may be writing a book, so maybe that's it. I don't know. It's just weird because there's such a huge group of people that are Trump supporters. So, and primaries, having President Trump's endorsement is huge. So I think that may be why he's not going to run. But I'm pretty sure there's another goal that he's going after, whether it be a book or the organization or whatever he's doing.
Bobby, if there's no incumbent, do Democrats like their chances?
Well, first of all, I want to apologize to Janelle for talking over her. I didn't mean to. This is one of the problems with these Zoom things. You can't actually hear when someone has stopped talking or not. So first of all, apologies for that. Second of all, I just think this
here.
is...
I apologize too.
Yeah, no, now I could kind of hear that one. So the issue here, I think, for Republicans, speaking as a Democratic strategist, is exactly what Janelle pointed out, which is, I think, Jeff Duncan. There's just no place for a guy in the Republican Party right now in Georgia in a primary electorate who does not support the actions of Donald Trump post the election. So I think that's unfortunate for many Republicans. It's probably a big boost to the Democratic ticket and whoever ends up being the lieutenant governor nominee on the Democratic side, because they're going to have the opportunity to go against somebody who is definitely a pro-Trump loyalist in that lieutenant governor's race and have the opportunity to potentially pick off that seat. So I like my chances if I'm a Democrat sitting here eyeing that race or already in it now.
We'll have to wait and see. Phil, I want to turn now to one of your favorite subjects, an update on the Atlanta mayoral race, where attorney Sharon Gay, a former aide to Bill Campbell, filed paperwork to raise money for a run. Atlanta City Councilman Antonio Brown now says that he'll consider a run also. Mayor Bottoms focused she has focused her shift to Atlanta's crime problem as she's up for re-election. We know Atlanta City Council President Felicia Moore is challenging her, and I keep hearing, former Mayor Reed could try and mount a campaign as well. So who should be the strongest on crime in your eyes, Phil? Because that's what the issue appears to be.
That is the big issue. You are correct. And yes, the mayoral election is this fall. Time is ticking away. And you accurately point out who the players are now. And it is very interesting. And you have to laugh and shake your head if he's on meds. I'm talking about former Mayor Kasim Reed thinking that he could try to get back into the race. Come on in. But, he was cited by the former U.S. attorney probing City Hall corruption under his administration as fostering a culture of corruption. I don't know how you campaign with that hanging over your head. Antonio Brown, let's see, he's indicted on some serious charges. Sharon Gay, Denton's attorney, I think she's a credible candidate. I frankly think she's got in too late, and you've got to have a political base, and I'm not sure Sharon has the time or money to develop that political base. And of course, Felicia Moore came out against incumbent Keisha Lance Bottoms pretty early. She does have a wide citywide political base. And in my opinion, I think that she is the crime fighter of this campaign. She's actually wants due process for police officers involved in shooting cases, something Mayor Bottoms refuses to admit to and to seek. She ruined everything. I'm talking about Mayor Bottoms now. Last summer, we've talked about this ad nauseum on the show and how she let down her city. She told the police to pull back during that summer rioting where millions and millions of property was destroyed and the cops' due process was violated. So I think Felicia Moore still may have the edge, but we all know in politics, don't we, that anything can happen. Somebody can say something foolish and change the whole dynamic of the campaign.
Bobby, I know you can give me a soundbite in 20 seconds. Just how do you see this all playing out?
Yeah, and I can just speak to the political aspect of this specifically. I think Mayor Bottoms is in an extremely strong position for re-election. She just raised a ton of money on Joe Biden's first fundraiser since he became president of the United States was for Keisha Bottoms, and I believe the number was somewhere north of 600,000 raised in one day. She's going to have the resources to tell whatever story she needs to tell on the airwaves here, and I think it's going to be a strong and tough job to try and knock off Mayor Bottoms.
Good observation. I mean, money isn't everything, but it does matter. So thank you all. Coming up, we'll have winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Janelle, we'll start with you this week.
Okay, well, first of all, my first winner is Buckhead Exploratory Committee. They have a message they send to everyone, especially to all the naysayers that said that the Georgia legislation would not pick up the bill to potentially, the cityhood bill for Buckhead, and they did. So 106 legislators have voted in support of it, so it's definitely going to be on the session in 2022. And next, the Georgia Veteran Hall of Fame. Congratulations to the new inductees there. Thank you for your service. I would also like to send my condolences to the family of artist Columbus Cook on behalf of their friend, Mary Lofton Soley. And lastly, definitely sending my condolences across the pond to the royal family on the loss of Prince Philip and their 70-year marriage. It's just amazing. So that's
absolutely. Mine. Phil, over to you.
Well, I want to just say a winner is Fred Ridley. I mentioned him earlier in the program, the chairman of the Augusta National Golf Club. He said it correctly. He said, this is sports, this is golf, we're not going to get into politics, and he's not going to bend to pressure. And secondly, fair fight, that's Stacey Abrams' left-wing battering ram. They went to court over the 2018 election. You remember Stacey thought she was elected governor that year, and the issue was the purging of voters who hadn't voted after several election cycles. And in accordance with state law, the Secretary of State purged them. And Judge Steve Jones rightly said, you know what, that was legal, that was well done, and you can always re-register.
All right, hate to cut you off, but Bobby, you're a TV guy, so I've got about 36 seconds.
All right, I'll go. And I'll be very clear here with a full disclosure that my winner today happens to be a client of ours, Blue Chip Strategies, and that's Marcus Flowers, the U.S. Army veteran who's running against Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia's 14th District. He came in with an incredible fundraising number, over $500,000. He's only been in the race just over a month.
All right, I got to leave it there. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Bobby, for holding your own against those two. Happy birthday to my husband, Bobby, who's celebrating today. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again next week.